been following me for at least a month now, you'll know that I just moved out of a small basement where I lived and made most of my videos. I also happen to have half of my home gym set up in the same space as my small living room. The other half would only fit outside, which I couldn't use in the colder months, and that's usually at least 8 months out of the year here in Alberta, Canada. Anyway, now that I've moved to a larger space, I decided to put together a better home gym setup. It's still going to be in a section of the basement for now, but this time there's more space and it's no longer going to be a shared space. This video is the first part of a 2-part series. In this part, I'll go over the why and the how I've put together everything that makes up my small but mighty 10 by 20 square foot fitness space. In the second part, I'll be touring the space and going into detail about what each equipment and tool can be useful for, why I personally chose them, and the cost breakdown for everything. I wanted a setup that's clean, effective for training in every way, and somewhat saves me space overall. I believe I've achieved all of these goals to the best of my ability with what I've been able to put together, and you guys are going to see. Although the new basement is a lot larger than the old one, I only plan on using a 10 by 20 square foot corner for my training space. The reason for this is I only plan on keeping the home gym down there temporarily until I can move it to the soon to be built garage for more natural light and access to fresh air. And trust me, this will be great in the warmer months. Not to mention no longer having to haul equipment down the stairs to the basement. The entire garage space will be 20 by 22 square foot when building is completed, but I only want to use up about half of that for my home gym when I eventually move it out there. That half of the garage will be more or less equivalent to the 10 by 20 square foot space I've decided to work with currently in the basement. Basically, I want to be able to cut and paste the gym template from my basement into half of my garage when built. And I need that to be seamless, hence why I'm doing it this way from the beginning. You're going to be able to replicate the same thing I'm doing here if you have a similar amount of space available to you. First off, it's an unfinished basement, so the walls and ceilings aren't finished. I had a temporary solution for the walls, which we'll get to eventually, but the ceiling I'll have to deal with as is for now. The second challenge I faced immediately was the lack of enough or even adequate lighting, which is fine as well. I went ahead and switched out the 2 weak ones that were originally installed with a couple of bright white LED lights. I used those alongside my powerful Aputure LS120D Mark II video light mounted on a stand so I can move it around to provide lighting where it's needed. I've also used a ceiling hook to mount a GVM video light at the back corner of the space for backlighting. These aren't necessary, but I make videos so I have to worry about how my lighting is set up. This is also nowhere near what I'd like for a perfect lighting setup, but it gets the job done for now. You'll notice I've also set up sort of a storage or non-active area for my shoes and other miscellaneous stuff right next to the 10 by 20 square foot space. I also have a TV on a stand as well as speakers, a heater, and a fan, all right in front of the space as well. These are more personal preference and wouldn't be necessary for most of you guys. I'll talk about this more in the second part, so make sure you're subscribed if you're not already subscribed. The first thing I was worried about was the floor and the impact my dumbbells and barbell weights would cause if I didn't place any kind of barrier between both. I had a few soft mats from before. These are like the same things used in building children play spaces, but they're no match for gym weight impact, and so will be a poor choice to use as gym flooring. I went out and did some research and got some flooring tiles identical to those used by major gym locations. These can be found online for purchase, but I bought mine at a local store in my city. I'll link some in the description for you guys. The only difference with mine is that they're interlocking as opposed to being one massive floor mat, and I find that to be perfect for easily moving them to a new location. It costs a lot more than the soft mats, but as soon as I picked them up, I understood why. I had some help from Hannah and we picked up as much as we could to fill up a 10 by 20 square foot space to help draw out the outline, brought them home, and went to work installing them. That entire process took about 1 to 2 hours to complete, but at the end of it, I was quite impressed with how it all turned out. A couple of days after we finished the flooring, the all-in-one functional trainer I ordered from Amazon arrived. This came just in time as I definitely wanted to have the flooring done before building any major equipment. The delivery was a pain and I enjoyed nothing about it. A lot of other organizations sell this exact equipment, so if you're interested in it, there will be links to some in the description below. I'll warn you though that this is not a cheap equipment, but what it can do is well worth it. And I'll talk more about that in the second part as well. It was a little annoying getting all the parts down the stairs due to the weight of some of the parts like the plates for the cable machine. Here's another reason why I'd rather have the gym in the garage. Once we got all the parts down, I quickly realized this would be a two-man job, so I reached out to a friend to help in putting it together. Before we began building, I threw on some white cloth to cover the ugly insulated walls temporarily. The manual's explanation on how to build the functional trainer was very vague, so it took us a while to get it all done. We also made some mistakes along the way which made us backtrack, and that contributed to the length of build time as well. At the end though, Peter and I were both proud of what we had built. The machine is a combination of a squat and bench station, Smith machine, cable machine, pull-up bar, dip station, and lots more. Like I said earlier, I'll talk about it more during the tour video. At this point, the 10 by 20 square foot space was starting to look more like a gym setting. I went and picked up 3 large identical mirrors from IKEA to use, since you can't really have a gym without mirrors. I initially leaned them against the middle open wall space, but because I shoot videos in the same space and don't want to see reflections of the camera gear in my videos, I had to move the mirrors to the opposite side of the 10 by 20 square foot space. The mirrors are light and can be moved around easily, so there's no problem there. The final delivery, which included a couple of things, finally arrived after being delayed by a few days. It had me worried for a little bit there. It contained the final pieces of the puzzle. I've always had my dumbbells, but never anywhere for them to be placed for easy access and lower back safety, so I got a dumbbell rack. I also wanted to get a second barbell to complete multiple barbell exercises simultaneously, but this one wasn't a necessity. One would have been enough. I was happy to be able to score one for free alongside the dumbbell rack during the most recent Black Friday sales. If anything, the most challenging part of the whole process was holding up the long and heavy center pieces while trying to screw them onto the sides that hold up the frame. It took Hannah and I 45 minutes to 1 hour to build it. I personally opted for a 30 pair dumbbell rack, which I don't have enough dumbbells to fit just yet, but I know I want my set to go up to at least 120 pounds eventually, so this might not be a bad idea to have right now. There are alternatives for smaller dumbbell sets which will take up even less space if you're trying to build a home gym in a small space like mine. Links will be in the description to a few options you can check prices on. At this point, everything I needed for the gym to be operational in that 10 by 20 square foot space had been set up, so my goal had been reached. I can now train for fat loss or strength and size goals in the same space with the same equipment. I'm satisfied with the outcome, and the best part is it's easy to move this to any other 10 by 20 square foot space like I will be doing with the garage gym. I've provided direct links to the exact items and more similar options for everything I used in the description below. If you're interested in finding out about equipment I've got in my home gym setup, how much it cost me to get everything and set up this space, and why I have each one, make sure to stay on alert for the second part of this video. Subscribe if you're new here, and if not, make sure you have notifications turned on. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, smash that like button for me real quick, and I'll see you all in the next one. It's Midas, and I'm out.